Go.
Good afternoon. My name is Beth Keene, and I'm the CEO of Los Angeles Museum of the Holocaust. Thank you for joining our virtual ceremony today. The sense of community we are feeling during this very difficult time is heartwarming. And while we are being forced to stay at home, canceling this important commemorative event was never an option for us. We are thrilled to see more than 1,000 people from our community come together to remember and reflect on one of the darkest periods in our history. This year marks the 75th anniversary of liberation and the end of the Holocaust. Our theme, Turning Memory into Action, is about remembering the past and also looking forward to turn never again into a reality. Our museum has partnered with 6 leading Holocaust institutions, as well as an organization called Together We Remember, whose founder and CEO, David Estrin, is our keynote speaker today. By banding together, it allows us to amplify our efforts and impact in fighting against all forms of anti-Semitism, hatred, and bigotry. As you can see, I am wearing a paper daffodil, and you will see others in today's ceremony doing the same. Every year, on April 19th, the anniversary of the start of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, the Polin Museum in Warsaw distributes paper daffodils to commemorate the uprising. This year, the Polin Museum has extended the daffodil campaign to other locations in the United States and in Israel, and Los Angeles Museum of the Holocaust is proud to partner with the Polin Museum on this campaign of remembrance. You will hear more about the daffodil symbol later in the program from Consul General of Poland, Yaroslav Lazinski. On a personal note, today, I remember my maternal grandparents who are survivors from Poland. I know if they were alive, they would tell us, this isn't so bad. We have our phones and FaceTime, and the Nazis aren't looking for us. So for me, that kind of puts things into perspective. And I think when we are feeling scared and anxious, we should look to our survivors for hope and inspiration. We'd like to thank the City of Los Angeles Department of Cultural Affairs and the Consulate General of the Republic of Poland in Los Angeles for providing generous support for today's program. People will be participating in the program live from the East Coast and as far as Italy, and we'll be sharing some videos today. There possibly could be a lag with the sound, but hopefully we won't run into any technical issues. We have many people working behind the scenes. So now it is my pleasure to introduce the museum's board chair, Michelle Gold.
Thank you, Beth, and thank you to all the organizers who have worked tirelessly on today's commemoration program. A warm welcome to all near and far. Although we cannot physically bring everyone together today, we are all here to remember together as one through the wonders of technology. Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Remembrance Day, will begin tomorrow evening, Monday, April 20th, the 27th of Nisan. Many communities and countries across the world will be virtually coming together to remember and honor approximately 6 million Jews and 5 million others who were killed in the Holocaust. Today we remember Belzak, Chelmno, Majdanek, Sobibor, Treblinka, Auschwitz-Birkenau, and we all say never again. And this year, we mark the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Nazi concentration camps and the darkest hour in human history, and we all say never again. Today, we honor and thank our survivors for their courage, for speaking out and sharing their stories, and for being the voices for the many million who don't have a voice. Today, we all stand tall and recognize each other and say, we are here, we are proud, and we shall never forget. Never again has never felt more important. Today, we all pledge to ensure that the legacy of our survivors and our liberators and every victim of the Holocaust are not forgotten for generations to come. Many of us have recently finished observing the festival of Passover. The message of Passover is one of freedom and the will to persevere against all odds. The essence of Passover is to ask Jews to never forget, to remember. We think about how 77 years ago, on April 19, the first night of Passover, the Germans entered the Warsaw Ghetto, the thousands of Jews who bravely resisted and fought back in their struggle for freedom, in defending their dignity, their human values of truth, the basic rights of every human being. Today, as a community, we have never been more challenged, but challenges make us stronger and knowledgeable, and knowledge inspires. And every day we are inspired to continue our goal of teaching our students, our educators and our communities, the lessons of the Holocaust, to guard against racism and discrimination in all its destructive forms, to ensure our future generations live in a world of dignity and humanity. So let's make Yom HaShoah our call to action, to come together, to learn from the past, so the past does not become our children's future, so they will never have to say never again, ever. It is now my pleasure to introduce Rabbi Joyce Hudson, Associate Rabbi at Temple Israel of Hollywood, to give the invocation.
Thank you. As we gather together this afternoon, in this holiest and most somber day, I invite you to take a deep breath in and out. And now, if you will, focus your heart, your soul, your mind on the essential act of remembering. To remember. When we hear this word in its separate parts, our sacred task together is clear. We are here to remember, to stitch together memories and reflections from their individual parts back into an inclusive whole, so that we might begin to comfort and name the staggering enormity of all who were lost, of all that was lost, of all that was wrought of evil made manifest. The psalmist declared, Eternal One, I will remember your name through the night. We are here to remember, to count ourselves as a community of witnesses, of those who accept the responsibility laid upon us all never to forget. We are members. We are members of a community that spans generations in the globe who are touched by the Shoah and who will never be the same because of it. Ne'ir Adonai Nishmat Adam. Each one of us, each human soul is a reflection of the light of the One. Finally, we are here to remember. We are here to recall. We are here to recall the vibrancy of each individual life cut short, each soul extinguished, each breath stopped. To remember lives lost is to remember and honor the One who brought us into being, and to recognize that their loss was a diminishment of light in the universe. And so we pray. Holy One of being, may our world learn. May we learn. May we remember that we all emanate from a single source of creation. We are all interconnected, and our lives are in each other's hands as much as they are in yours. May we, through our remembrance today, be sources of shalom, sources of wholeness and peace in this troubled world. May we learn. May we learn that human beings can bring evil one to the other, and they can also bring caring and comfort and love. May we set before ourselves today a kavanah, a sacred intention that our time together today will inspire us to be sources of goodness and comfort and wholeness in our world. And we say together, Amen.
Thank you, Rabbi Hudson. I would now like to introduce to you Shira Kreitenberg. Shira is a granddaughter of Holocaust survivors, and she will now sing the national anthems of the United States and Israel.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Kolot balevav penima nefesh Yehudi omiyah ulfatem Mizrach kadima ayin letzion Sophia or lo avta tikvatenu Hatikva bat shnot alpayim liyotam chofshi be'artzenu eretz Zion v'Yerushalayim. להיות עם חופשי בארצנו, ארץ ציון וירושלים.
Shira, thank you. That was beautiful. Thank you. Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti was not able to join us this afternoon, but he took time out of his tremendously busy schedule to record a message for us, as did City Attorney Mike Feuer and City Council members David Rue and Paul Koretz. We are now going to hear their message.
Us gather even when we are staying physically apart. When we mark the darkest chapters of our history, we see that simply remembering what we lost can be an exercise in righteous action. Because through our memories of the atrocities of the past, we can heed lessons for the present and defeat the forces of bigotry in the future. So each year on Yom HaShoah, we remember those who perished and we honor those who survived. We recall the horrors of the Holocaust, 6 million Jews murdered, generations of families erased, and the Nazis' attempt to wipe us from this planet and from history. And though 75 years have passed, we are still not free from hate or anti-Semitism or white supremacy, or even from those who in moments of crisis seek to point fingers at an ethnic minority. But we are here, and today we are called to remember once again to bear witness why love must always triumph over hate. In LA, we have been blessed with the leadership of so many who survived the Shoah, who have offered us wisdom and given us hope during our most beautiful moments. So let us reaffirm what they have taught us, that when things get hard, we must be resilient. When we feel powerless, we must be brave. And when we see injustice, we must speak up and do something. May we all be ambassadors of compassion, justice, and love today and every day in their memory.
Because we must observe this extraordinary Holocaust Remembrance Day separated from each other, it's all the more important that we find ways like this to share the profound meaning of this day and affirm our deep connections to each other. Over decades of remembering the Holocaust, honoring its survivors, and keeping their vital lessons alive, and through my work at Bethesda Legal Services, vindicating survivors' rights, I've been struck by the incredible strength and spirit of those who endured such brutality, such suffering, yet demonstrated enormous resilience and passion for life. As a community, we need their example more than ever. Our hardship now pales by comparison to what the survivors lived through. They have so much to teach us about the meaning of hope and faith that tomorrow will be better. On this Yom HaShoah, we recall, as we do every year, the pain and degradation of hate. What happens when we allow one to demonize the other, and the deep significance of never again. But on this Yom HaShoah, let us also focus on what we mean to each other, how much we need one another, and the redemption of which the human spirit is capable. I'm Mike Fewer, the Los Angeles City Attorney, asking that we choose on this day to rededicate ourselves to repairing a world that is broken, and the knowledge that the choice to do so rests in our fragile hands.
Hello to the Los Angeles Museum of the Holocaust, and thank you for bringing us together virtually for this Yom HaShoah commemoration. Today, as every day at the Museum of the Holocaust, we come together to remember and to oppose the great evil of anti-Semitism we see to this very day. Together, we remember to honor the lives that were lost. Together, we remember to stand up to hatred and intolerance in all forms. And together, we remember so that the future generations will never repeat this horrific crime. Thank you for all that you do, and thank you for remembering.
Good afternoon. I'm especially honored to be participating in this year's commemoration, as it's the 75th anniversary of the liberation. As for us all, Yom HaShoah has always been painfully significant to me. It's not only because my dear father of blessed memory was able to escape Nazi Germany that I'm here today, but he was never able to speak of the things he saw or of his beloved sister who was murdered in a concentration camp. He never even spoke her name to me. But through a recent ancestry search, I found out that she was Lottie Koretz, who then married and became Lottie Vogel and had 2 children. I don't know if her husband was Jewish, but I suspect with a family it seemed too difficult regardless to follow my father out of Germany. So she remained there and met her terrible fate. I'd like to take this moment to honor my father, his family, and the millions of other families who have been afflicted by this unspeakable tragedy. It's through events like this that the memories of the survivors live on in our minds and our hearts. And it's through organizations like the Museum of the Holocaust that we make sure that the Holocaust and its lessons for humanity will never be forgotten. Thank you, and thank you for including me.
Thank you. Dr. Gary Schiller, Honorary Director of Los Angeles Museum of the Holocaust, will now lead us with his family in the lighting of 6 yahrzeit candles to honor the memory of the victims of the Holocaust.
Let us join in a moment of tribute as we light 6 yahrzeit candles to honor the memory of the victims of the Shoah. We light the first candle to commemorate the 75th anniversary of liberation and the end of the war, and to honor and remember those in the Allied forces who encountered Nazi concentration camps, witnessed the massive human suffering, and attempted to help survivors by providing food, clothing, and medical assistance.
We light the second candle to honor the Holocaust survivors who founded Los Angeles Museum of the Holocaust in 1961.
We light the third candle in memory of the survivors from our community whom we sadly lost in the last year.
We light the fourth candle as a tribute to those named righteous among the nations and all other heroic individuals who rescued Jews. We light the fifth candle in memory of the 1.5 million Jewish children who perished during the Holocaust.
My father, who was a Holocaust survivor and former member of the board until March, is 3 blocks away, and so he would have had the final word here. So Dad, for you, I'm reading this. And we light the final candle in memory of the 6 million Jews who were murdered during the Holocaust.
Thank you, and thank you to all of you. And now we're going to hear a message from Stefan Schneider, the Consul General of Germany in Los Angeles.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, today we are commemorating Yom HaShoah. Anti-Semitism is an absolute nightmare. It is so sad to learn that after various hideous anti-Semitic incidents in Germany, people of the Jewish faith no longer feel at home there. This is a terrible disgrace 75 years after the liberation of Auschwitz. We need to do more to protect our Jewish friends, institutions, and communities, not only in Germany, but all over Europe and everywhere, day by day. Each attack on Jewish life is an attack on the dignity of mankind. We have to combat anti-Semitism. It is a virus which has been in this world for too long. God bless you. Together we remember. Thank you so much.
And thank you so much. It is now my privilege to welcome Dr. Hillel Newman, Consul General of Israel in Los Angeles.
Hello, everybody. It is my honor to join you in this commemorative event organized by the Los Angeles Museum of the Holocaust, and I thank you for the invitation to be part of this. We bow our heads in mourning and sorrow when we think of the multitude of victims, innocent people killed at the hands of hatred, just pure evil. In Israel, sirens are sounded in the entire country on the day of the Holocaust. And this has 2 meanings. One, to make sure that it's a national event of national meaning and national solemnity. And the second aspect is to make sure that every individual in Israel is part of this memory. I'd like to just mention one personal side of mine that is connected to the Holocaust. And my father, who was born actually in Czechoslovakia, managed to get out of his city in 1939 when the Nazis had already conquered the city. And the Holocaust was an aspect that accompanied him throughout his life, and then me throughout my life, in his quest for meaning to the fact that he was one of the sole survivors of his family. Throughout my life, I have drawn three main lessons from the Holocaust. The first, of course, is connected to Israel. We say in Israel, Mishoah litkuma, from the Holocaust to a reliving, rebuilding. And the state of Israel, you could say, came out of the ashes of the Holocaust. From such a low, one of the darkest periods of history, came out such a great light. And this is a message of hope and optimism, that we really can come out of the darkest periods and the lowest stages in our life and build. The second message that the state of Israel has learned, and me personally also, is the fact that we must take everything seriously. What began in the Nazi period as just verbal abuse went on then to the burning of books and ended with the burning of flesh. So we must also be aware that every small act of hatred and bigotry, anti-Semitism, should be taken seriously. Here also, even in the Los Angeles community, we have vandalizing of synagogues, graffiti sometimes. We must take all of this seriously. The third lesson that I've taken is that we must always be ready to defend ourselves and protect ourselves. And the state of Israel is a safe haven for Israel and for all Jews around the world and for all oppressed nations. We marked, I know that this gathering, this commemorative is 75 years to the liberation. We just had an event in Israel with the leaders of so many countries that came together in Israel to mark the liberation. And along with the atrocities, we also remember the righteous and those that saved and those that did good things during such dark periods of time. I'd like to conclude with a word just on today's anti-Semitism. It is actually mind-boggling that 75 years, 80 years since the Holocaust, we still have so much anti-Semitism, hatred and bigotry. And according to many data, many pieces of information, the anti-Semitism is on a rise. This again gives us a further dedication to the never again and to our conviction that we at all times must stand together and stand strong against any form of hatred and bigotry and anti-Semitism. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Newman. Please now welcome Yaroslav Lashinsky, the Consul General of Poland in Los Angeles.
Good afternoon, everyone, and good evening to some. I here joining us from Italy. I feel privileged and I'm deeply honored to be able to join you in this today's commemoration. On Yom HaShoah, we remember 6 million of Jews who perished during the Holocaust. Half of that staggering number, 3 million, were Jews from Poland. It amounted for 90% of pre-war Jewish Polish population. But on Yom HaShoah, we also remember not just martyrs, but also heroes. On the exact day, 77 years ago, Warsaw Ghetto Uprising was started. For 4 weeks, just a handful of fighters trying to fight overwhelming German SS forces were trying to stop the final deportation of the remaining Jews to Treblinka death camp. Let me say a few words of one of the heroes of that Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, Dr. Marek Edelman. He was last surviving leader of uprising. He became a leader after the untimely death of the main leader, Mordechai Anielewicz. He was pro-war Bund activist, co-founder of Jewish Combat Organization. After the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising ended, he was able to escape from burning ghetto. He later fought in the Warsaw Uprising that claimed 200,000 lives and left the whole city in rubble. After the war, he became a very known cardiologist. He never left Poland, even though he was harassed by communist government. He became one of the Solidarity Movement leaders and was a well-regarded person throughout his whole life. He passed away 11 years ago. When he spoke about Warsaw Ghetto uprising, he said that he knew they didn't have any chance of winning. He said that they fought simply not to allow Germans to pick a time and place of their deaths. As you can see, I'm also wearing a yellow paper daffodil. There is a story behind it. Many years ago, and year after year, Dr. Edelman received a bouquet of yellow daffodils from an unknown person. He later brought them every year on the anniversary of the start of the Warsaw Ghetto uprising to the monument to the ghetto heroes to lay them down. Even though he passed away 11 years ago, a very symbolic gesture has just been started. Since that time, you can see every year on the April 19th, on the day of the anniversary of the Warsaw Ghetto uprising, thousands of residents of Warsaw wearing daffodils like this one being handed by hundreds of volunteers. I can tell you this, that in Polish tradition, daffodil is a flower that is a symbol of rebirth, but also of a hope. Right now, when we see less and less Holocaust survivors among us, so there is every year a smaller number of people that can tell the stories. There is a hope. The hope lies in us, that we will remember that it will never happen again. Thank you.
Leshinsky, thank you so much. We thank our friends in the California Legislative Jewish Caucus who recorded this message that we're going to play for you today.
Hi there, my name is Ben Allen, and I'm chair of the California Legislative Jewish Caucus. In lieu of us all being together here today, I wanted to ask some of my colleagues to share some words on this sobering day. As Jewish legislators, we understand how important it is to keep telling the story of the Holocaust. So many of its lessons, unfortunately, remain consistently applicable, and this is especially true today.
One of the lessons of the Holocaust is that in times of turmoil, people look for scapegoats. Fear turns into hatred, intolerance into action, thoughts into words, and words into violence. We are again living in a time of great instability, and we are witnessing a rise in hate incidents targeting the Asian American community, the Jewish community, and other vulnerable groups. We must remember how society failed during the Holocaust and never let history repeat itself.
We can and must and should build alliances. But one of the lessons of the Holocaust and the underpinnings of the State of Israel is that we must also be prepared to defend ourselves. For this reason, we remain committed to lifting up the stories of the Holocaust to honor and to remember.
We honor the righteous, who risked everything to protect others, the liberators, who fought and won a war for universal freedom, and the survivors, like my father-in-law, who somehow rebuilt with joy and persisted despite everything they lost.
We remember the consequences of unchecked hatred, that Jews and other minorities are most often the targets, and that compassion can heal the world. With bigotry and intolerance on the rise against our minority communities in this crisis, it's more important than ever to remember that bigotry must always be called out for what it is.
And beyond this crisis, policy making, relationship building, and doing our homework, we will continue to fight for the betterment of the Jewish community and for the dignity of all. We are grateful to be doing this work with the Los Angeles Museum of the Holocaust, together with other important Jewish institutions in Los Angeles. Only together can we say, never again.
Never again.
Never again. Never again.
Never again.
It is now my pleasure to introduce virtuoso guitarist Alberto Lombardi, who is joining us from Italy.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody, and good evening from here. It's evening in Italy. And I would like to play for you a song that is taken from a movie. And the movie is called Life is Beautiful and sees the horror of the Holocaust through the eyes of innocence and beauty.
Alberto, thank you. That was stunning. It is now with the greatest affection that I now introduce Edith Franke, a Holocaust survivor and a treasured member of our community.
Thank you, Michelle. I do appreciate that introduction. And I'm very proud of it for being part of the museum and this community also. And you're doing a wonderful job, Michelle. I do appreciate that very much. And anybody else can hear me? I don't know if
We hear you. Go ahead.
you can hear me. Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, the virtual land. My name is Edith Franke. I was born in Transylvania in a small town. There were only 4 Jewish families in the whole town. And when all our friends were non-Jewish kids, and when the Yellow Star came on, we went to school, they were calling us dirty Jews. And we couldn't imagine, why are we dirty Jews? You were in our house, you ate, and why am I dirtier today than I was yesterday? But we came home bloody and told my parents we don't want to go to school anymore. But my parents, being very wise, that yes, you will, because physical punishment will heal, but knowledge nobody can take away from you. So this went on, and after that, my the gendarmes, which unlike the Hungarian was the police, they came to our house. My father played beautifully the violin, and they were eating and dancing that night at our house. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, when they knocked at the door, instead of calling my father by his name, they called, "Hey, you Jew, open up the door and you have 1 hour. Everybody brings 3 change of clothing and as food as much as you can gather." And actually my father obeyed, and we were all in the courtyard within an hour, herded up on one of those horse and wagons. And the other 3 families joined us. We were taken to the nearest city, which one we used to go there many times when our parents wanted to introduce us to a Jewish meal, kosher meal, or there was the time where I saw actually Wizard of Oz. But this time that trip seemed to be an eternity. And we went when we got at the ghetto, it was like a brickyard, and we were in there. And when we asked, "What is this place?" the gendarme said, "You're gonna know, you're gonna find out. Just get out and you're gonna see." And my father got out, opened the door, and to our astonishment, we saw there were over 6,000 Jews crammed into that big brickyard. No matter how big that brickyard is, still crowding in 6,000 people, it wasn't a very good place to be. My mother brought some sheets, and every parent made a little cubicle to make some privacy for their family. And this went on when one day our transport was the last transport. It was May 31st. Then we were herded into one of those cattle wagons. The only facilities for waste, there was 2 garbage pails and 1 for water. So you can imagine how fast those cans were filled up. And my mother realized that my sister and I never moved from the place where we were. She insisted that we have to, because otherwise we're gonna get sick. So my mother grabbed our hands and asked some women to make a shield, and slipping and sliding. And every time I talk about it, even though it's over 75 years, I still can smell the stench. And when we came back, about a day later, the doors opened, and we were so elated that we got a little bit of fresh air. But as soon you got closer to the door, you heard yelling, hurry up, leave all your belongings, because you're gonna get them later." And as soon you step down, they were men and boys to one side and women and children to the other. That was the last time when I saw my father and my young brother. Didn't know what was happening, never had a chance even to say goodbye. We were going, marching deeper into the compound when we smelled that smoke, and we saw sparks coming out, and we couldn't imagine what's burning there. And they were inmates cleaning around us, and they were telling, "Didn't you get just separated from your loved ones? That's burning there." And poor guys, they got beaten up so badly, because that's not true. What we're burning there is your filthy clothes. And I was the first one in line who got in front of that infamous gate, "Work makes life free." And the SS looked at me due to I was somewhat taller than I am now, and I was heftier, and it said, go behind the gate because you have enough fat on you and you're gonna be working. And naturally, when my mother saw that I am not with them, she grabbed my two little cousins for my sister, and she said, go after Edith and take care of each other. A mother's intuition, I think that was saved her life. And this went on, and the life, it was very hard. We were there for 36 hours in Auschwitz doing nothing, just sitting there. And after that, we were asking for some water. They said when they are ready, they're gonna give it to us. We asked for bathroom facility, the same answer. And that was the last time when I saw my mother also, and the rest of the family. We, after a few days, finally they blew the whistle. Everybody, you wanted water, we give you the water. They gave us a little tin cup, thickening with sand. And they said, here, but make sure you drink enough, that you have enough for people behind you. Didn't know how many people are behind you, so it barely wet our lips. And after about a few hours, they blew the whistle and said, okay, here you can use the bathrooms. And after the bathroom, we were herded all out into the courtyard. And we saw other inmates behind a big fence. And they said, they were yelling, don't go, they're going to kill you. So they're gonna do us a favor. But hide. Where are you gonna hide? Sentries maybe every 5 feet with the machine guns. There wasn't even a bush to hide. So we went ahead, and the people, they behind the fence, they were asking us that don't touch the fence because you're gonna be electrocuted. So finally, we just kept on going, and we ended up on one of the scuttle wagons again. But this time, it was much slower. We were less people. We were maybe 150 people. And after maybe 5 days, this was the first time we got our food, our ration. In the morning, a spoonful of porridge with some roasted oats for black coffee. At noon, vegetable soup. The reason we knew was vegetable soup because it was peels of vegetable floating on the top. And for dinner, a slice of cold cut and a loaf of bread about 1 pound size divided by 5, and 1 pat of margarine. That was our diet practically for 1 year. Finally, the wagon started to move, and after about 2 days, the doors opened and we realized that we were in Riga, Latvia. We remembered from geography that Riga was in Latvia. As soon as they got us 50 people to disembark, they gave us a coat, and they gave us a long dress and some working boots, which one the canvas was, the top was canvas and the sole was from wood. And this went on. After Riga, we were taking out to the Jewish cemetery to drag out the tombstones and to bring them to Riga's main streets and to pave them. But those tombstones weren't porous enough, and those sledgehammers, they were too heavy for us, and we were falling backwards. we got plenty of beating there. And this went on for a few days till later on they took us in deeper into a forest where they cut up in Latvia, where they cut up the trees. And our job was to dig out the roots because they wanted to build an airport. And we were there just a few days when we heard artillery flying and planes flying. And we said that people were yelling, the Russians are coming, we're gonna be liberated. No such luck. They gathered all the Jews and they took us down to the Baltic Sea, where we embarked on a ship, and they took us to the other side of the sea, of the sea, and we got to Stutthof. Never heard about it, so we were there, and our job was to take dead bodies, carrying it from one place to another. And there was a nice place. At least we didn't know we were gonna be exterminated or not. A few days later, a voice came on in Hungarian and asked all the women who came from Transylvania to come up front. And we weren't enough, but some Slovak residents, they also, spoke Hungarian, so they said they come from Transylvania also, and they selected 500 of us. They took us out to another little camp where there were 5 barracks and 100 per barracks. And there we were. He was a decent guy. We had our own bunk beds, and we were very in our own towels. We were quite comfortable. And we heard singing in German. We didn't realize that we had shield also. Next door to us, there was a camp for Hitlerjugends, which were to raise Hitler's elite soldiers. And that's how it went on. I don't think I have any more time to speak, or do I? Please let me know.
You have a little bit longer, Edith.
Okay. So, after when the was bombing again and the Hitlerjugend camp was burning, they let us out, and we had to go by 5, a line up per 5 also. And there they asked, we got a Red Cross parcel, and that Red Cross parcel had non-perishable food. But the most important thing, they had 5 packs of Lucky Strike cigarettes. We never knew how promising those cigarettes and how valuable those cigarettes were. And we were marched out on the highway. We were one side of the highway, and the middle was the German army, and on the other side was the civilian population. And we were asking, where are they running? They said they're running away from the Russians to the American zone. And by now our food was getting low, and we thought we're gonna barter with the German soldiers and ask them, how would you like to have some cigarettes? And they looked at us, where would we have cigarettes when they didn't have cigarettes for months? I said, how about American cigarettes? So they were very much surprised that we're having American cigarettes, and said, certainly. I said, okay, we give you 2 cigarettes, give us food, whatever you have, ration, water, whatever you have. We were 21 of us since the ghetto. We were fortunate enough, we were always together. And so this way, how we kept our survival. And one day, when we came back from our camp, from our working day, we went to our camp, to our barracks. We found out that our bunk beds were gone, and we had only slabs built around the wall. And our camp commander found out that we are Hungarians. They started, if in case was raining, she was blowing the whistle about 2 or 3 times at night. We should march around the courtyard and sing Hungarian songs. After a while, we realized that they didn't understand. She didn't understand what we are talking. So we made our own lyrics. A little bit, we felt better that we get a little bit even with them. So we kept on marching, and that soaking wet went back to the barrack, and maybe we had maybe another hour to dry out, and then she started all over again. After that, we heard we heard people yelling that the Russians are gone, the Russians are gone, the gates are open, and the SS are gone. I'm sorry, the SS are gone, the gates are open, and we are free. So the 21 of us, we said, well, we won't go with the crowd being trampled. We're gonna go outside. And the highway was sloped down, and we were yelling. We were on our stomachs, and there, hoping that nobody gonna see us from the top of the highway. And after a few days, the Russians, they said that, there were some soldiers who they said, if you go a few more kilometers, you're gonna be safe. And we went, and it was like a little hill where we climbed, and we saw a sea of soldiers, different color uniforms. We didn't recognize them. We're gonna be safe between all the soldiers, but some official looking people came up towards us, and they asked us in German, who are we? We told them we are 21 Hungarian women who we just got liberated, and they told if we come here close to this place, we're gonna be safe from the Russians. And they introduced themselves. They are the rabbis and the chaplain, that sea of soldiers. They were all American POWs. And physically, they took us into a room, and the rabbi sat us down and asked, what are our plans? So naturally, we wanted to go home. So they said, if in case we were in Auschwitz, of course, we told them. And they asked us, if you saw that smoke. I said, yes, we did. And that smell, that terrible hell burning smell. And they said, well, I hope you will go home. If you're gonna find one parent alive, you're gonna be very fortunate. 2 is gonna be a rarity. Young siblings, forget about, and about your grandparents and all that, just forget about. So that's how they told us about what happened. That smell, it was the crematorium. That was the first time that we believed that Germany, such an intellectual nation, to do such a cruelty just because of our religion. And thank you for listening. And I hope this world never again, definitely never again. What happened, we can forget, it's in our heart, but we don't have to carry it always on our shoulders. And thank you.
And dear Edith, thank you on behalf of the entire community. We thank you. And now, to mark 75 years since liberation, we would like to share a clip of testimony from an American liberator of the Mauthausen concentration camp. Don Bem served 2 years in the 11th Armored Division of Patton's Third Army. His tank broke open the gates of Mauthausen, freeing thousands, including the grandfather of our keynote speaker.
I would like to have you all travel with me back a few years to May the 5th, 1945. A glorious sunshiny day. I was riding as tank commander with the 11th Armored Division, B Troop, 41st Cavalry, mechanized. The Army had not warned us at all about what we were about to see. And so I pulled the tank down. I told the driver, pull it down, ease it in, don't smash the gate. And the gate swung open. And immediately a group of prisoners. Now I've seen happy people at ball games when their team won, but never in my life have I seen anyone as happy as those guys were, because we literally had just saved their lives. They were just overwhelmed. They wanted to get out and kiss my tank, of all things. But it was a awakening experience. It was a new experience for me. It was a sight to behold. When we broke that gate open, the first thing I saw was a pile of dead bodies, about 3 feet high, just cast in there like they had been jumped a mile away. And I walked through the camp and went back to the crematorium, saw the big room, the gas chamber, where they would strip the prisoners naked and pack them into the shower room and open the jets. And instead of water coming out of them, cyanide gas came out. And they killed them, and they drug them over, and there was a pile of dead bodies just about 6 feet from the oven, or from the big gas chamber. And the oven was there. It was still warm. The guards had all left. They heard us coming, and they got out of there, and justly so. Eventually, we found a good share of them, but I couldn't stay too long, but we had a war to continue. When we realized that the war was over, we didn't celebrate. We all filed into the little church there and got down on our knees and thanked our Maker that we had made it through alive. Then we came out, and then we got drunk.
Please now welcome our keynote speaker, David Estrin. David is the grandson of 4 Holocaust survivors and the founder and CEO of Together We Remember.
Hello, everyone. Just bear with me a moment here. In all the DJing that I've been doing of the event, I lost my presentation, so I'm pulling it back up, and I'll be ready to go in just a second here. So, hello everyone. Thank you so much, Michelle, for that kind introduction, for everyone for being here with us today. As a kid, I often tried to envision what my grandparents experienced during the Holocaust. I pictured myself beside my paternal grandparents taking cover behind the trees in a dense Lithuanian forest, exchanging gunfire with the Nazis as part of the Jewish resistance. I pictured myself marching with my grandma, unsure if we would be taken to the right and eventually shot into the Danube, or to the left into the Budapest ghetto, where she would ultimately be saved by Raoul Wallenberg. I pictured myself clinging to life in the barracks of the Mauthausen concentration camp with my grandfather, just days away from liberation, by Don Bame, who you just heard, and the men of the 11th Armored Division. More than anything, I wished I could tell them in these moments that they would survive all of this, that one day their grandson would share their stories with students and communities across the world. Although I couldn't change the past, their stories helped me realize my ability to make a difference in the future. At the age of 13, I became a man in the Jewish community and celebrated in style, as you can tell, at my bar mitzvah. Shout out to my mom and dad who are probably watching today. Thank you very much for this incredible bar mitzvah. But just a few months later, I found myself inside the gates of a concentration camp for the very first time. I was inside Mauthausen with my grandfather, and he shared with me his story of how he survived. That day, I look back on as the moment that I woke up as a social change maker, as a social justice advocate. And that was not the first visit. That was not my last visit to Mauthausen. It was one of multiple that I would take with my grandfather. The following year, he brought me back again for the 60th anniversary of the liberation of the concentration camp. And that's where I met Don Boehm and the liberators from the 11th Armored Division. And I witnessed the reenactment of liberation with the soldiers on one side of the gates and then the prisoners on the other. And I think it's really important to share this photo of myself at age 14, a child. This is what a young person looks like when their belief in humanity is both shattered and remade at the same time, because I had witnessed what humanity could be both at its worst and at its best in the very same day. And that's when I really realized my responsibility to fulfill the promises of never forget and never again. Now, my grandfather, who had survived Mauthausen, unfortunately passed away at the age of 86 when I was a junior at Duke University. And he left us binders and binders of our family's documents and stories from the Holocaust. And one document in particular stood out to me. It was this one, which is a registry of the prisoners who had passed through Mauthausen. And here you can see my great-grandfather, who was murdered almost just at the end of my grandparents' experience. He was Jew number 67232. And you could see his name is crossed out. And that obviously meant that he was killed. And I thought to myself, to think that people have the power of life and death with simply the stroke of a pen, and how personal it is to write these names in this moment. But then I also saw my grandpa's name. It was one of the few names not crossed out, Jew number 67245. But when I saw this document, I thought, how many more names exist on lists like this from genocides and atrocities in the past? How many more names are we adding to lists like this today? And how many more have to exist in the future? This is what began my fascination with what's the meaning of a name. I went back to Duke in the spring semester of my third year, and I asked, how could I honor my grandpa's memory in a way that was relevant, meaningful, but most importantly, actionable to my school community and to future generations? At the time, Israel and Gaza were at war. Jewish and Muslim relations on campus were hardly peaceful at the moment. And also I noticed that there was no Yom HaShoah Holocaust Remembrance Day program, which was a surprise to me. So I got together with a group of my most diverse friends, and we said, well, what if we can organize a remembrance vigil in the most high visibility part of campus and read the names of victims of not just the Holocaust, but different genocides and atrocities throughout history. Maybe then people beyond the Jewish community would come together and see that when we say never again, we mean it for all members of our community, and everyone would feel welcome to participate. So that's what we did. For 10 hours the first year, and then 24 hours during my senior year, we read the names of 50,000 victims of different genocides for 24 hours. And it was just an incredible, enlightening experience, because we realized it was in that inclusivity, right? I'm from Boca Raton, Florida. I had been to many Yom HaShoah programs, but to that point, it had largely been members of the Jewish community. What if we broadened the scope? Maybe that would attract diverse members of the community. And so that's what we did. And we also realized that this vigil created the space for so many other types of programs and experiences on that day and during that week. Survivor testimony, scholarly lectures, dialogues of bridge building, pledges, exhibitions, the list goes on. We realized we were onto something big here, realizing that collective memory has the power to spark collective unity and, most importantly, collective action. Now, I had to graduate and get a real job according to my parents, so I moved on from this project and I went out into the corporate world. But like many of you, I started to notice some very troubling trends in our local community, but also around the world. Deepening violent conflicts from areas like Syria to the Democratic Republic of the Congo, among a bunch of other countries, as well as ongoing atrocities committed with impunity. I'm thinking of places like Myanmar. And of course, we're experiencing the worst refugee crisis in history these days. And we're also witnessing hate rising in social media and the results of that in our communities. Most unnerving to me, though, personally, though, was the fact that the survivors of the Holocaust who made us promise never again were passing away at precisely the moment that the lessons of the past may matter most. And so this is what I call our Le Dorvador moment. We are living through this precious moment in history where the next generation must lead the charge in carrying on memory. That's what I've been brought up to do, as well as so many other young people that have had the opportunity to visit the LA Museum of the Holocaust and so many other museums of genocide and mass atrocities across the country and around the world. So I quit my job in corporate America and founded Together We Remember, a nonprofit and emerging movement dedicated to empowering the next generation of leaders to make never again a reality. And our moonshot vision is that by 2048, the 100-year anniversary of the Genocide Convention, as well as the UN Declaration of Human Rights, that is when we will achieve our ultimate goal, a world in which genocide, mass atrocities, and other forms of identity-based violence are no longer prevalent in our world, and we can close that chapter of history. And as long as we have more names to add to the list, we know we have work to do. So this is how we are going to hold ourselves accountable year in and year out. And if those names are added to that list, then we are going to do everything in our power to document that and to preserve their memory. I signed on the dotted line. Together Remember is a registered nonprofit organization, which is a lot harder to do than I thought at the beginning of that process. And I'm really proud to share that several years later, we've now organized over 100 remembrance vigils in 9 different countries around the world, mostly in high schools and in universities all across the world. And I want to bring you in under the hood of our movement and what we do, right? Every one of our vigils looks and sounds quite different, but they have a common framework. And I want to double click into the core values with you for a few moments. First off, all of our vigil programs are inclusive. When we say never again, we mean it for all communities across the world that have been subjected to identity-based violence. They are localized. So we encourage teachers and students to ask the question, what does never again mean in our backyard, right? I'm living in Baltimore, and the struggles and the challenges that Baltimore is facing today is no doubt tied to an unresolved legacy of trauma stemming back to the age of slavery, through racial terror lynchings, Jim Crow, redlining, and the list goes on. And it's really powerful for us to look into our own backyards to figure out where we can begin to take action on these issues. Third, youth leadership. Young people are ready not just to learn about history, but also to make history. And time and again, they prove that to be true, whether it is in previous movements like in the civil rights movement, or today with the students from March for Our Lives at Marjory Stoneman Douglas who've now sparked a movement. And again, in so many other examples. And then finally, repetition. There is no single campaign in a one-time event and in one point of the year where we're going to actually achieve that goal of never again. We have to do this again and again, year over year. And that is why we come together every year during Genocide Awareness Month, during the month of April, to unite across lines of difference. And to give you a snapshot of a couple of our vigil programs that we've organized. We organized a vigil the other year with the Jewish Museum of Maryland here in Baltimore, where I'm based, in the Lloyd Street Synagogue, which is the 3rd oldest standing synagogue. But that stage where you see those performers speaking from and performing from, that is the same bima that a rabbi gave a speech supporting the Civil War and supporting slavery, I should say, which is a terrible part of the Jewish community's history here in Baltimore. But we came together beyond the scope of the Jewish community to sort of reclaim and reconsecrate that space as a community, which was very important. At the College of Charleston in Charleston, South Carolina, this was just blocks away from the Mother Emanuel AME Church, where Dylan Roof killed 9 members of the Mother Emanuel AME Church community. We organized a vigil that acknowledged the legacy of slavery in that community and then connected it to the present day, as well as other issues with respect to anti-Semitism in the present day. In the Charlottesville community, I partnered with Susan Bro, the mother of Heather Heyer, who was killed there so terribly in 2017. And we brought together community leaders across lines of difference to ask the question, what are we willing to do to prevent another name from being added to the list in Charlottesville? And finally, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, which really hits close to home because I grew up in Boca Raton. Ivy Seamus, an incredible Holocaust educator at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, had signed up to organize one of our Together We Remember vigils in her classroom. But just a few weeks later, the shooter entered Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, killing 2 of her students as she was teaching about hate groups in the United States. And so we couldn't organize the vigil there that April. But last April, we were able to organize that vigil. And I brought a survivor of the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda, whose school had also been massacred. And she texted me for days afterwards that her students they weren't the same. They had finally woken up in a way that she hadn't seen since before the shooting. So we've been doing this work. And I'm also really proud to share that Twitter, the social media company, granted us $100,000 of in-kind advertising to boost messaging of the work that we were doing, not just offline, but on their platform. That way we can also counter hate online. And students and educators and people all over the world were sharing with the Together We Remember hashtag who, what, why, and how they pledged to remember. And then we were taking all of that content and putting it onto the Together Remember website in what we're calling a virtual memorial. So generations from now, our kids and grandkids will know what we did today to make Never Again a reality. And we were raising awareness about April as Genocide Awareness Month and sharing stories of survivors like Eva Kor. And last year, I had the privilege of speaking at the United Nations and sharing this story that I'm sharing with you right now. And it was a surreal experience because on the opposite side, sitting from me, was the ambassador from Austria. And many of you will know that Mauthausen is in Austria. And the ambassador to Austria said, first off, he apologized on behalf of his country for what happened in the Holocaust. And second, he said, should it ever be necessary, he would do everything in his power to ensure his citizens would be on the right side of history this time. And then just a few weeks ago, with the launch of our 8th annual Together Remember campaign and Genocide Awareness Month, Ambassador Samantha Power, the former United States ambassador to the United Nations, endorsed our campaign and sent us a 7-minute video, which was just totally surreal for me. This is one of those moments that I dreamed of when we first started this work. And then building off of all of that, we created the Together We Remember Coalition. In large part with the help of the Los Angeles Museum of the Holocaust, we've now rallied a coalition of the leading Holocaust and genocide museums across the country and increasingly around the world to figure out how could we align our programming to boost our message during April each and every year. That way we could be more effective and more impactful with our programming. But this was so important. This is what made us ready to shift from offline programming into online programming in the age of COVID-19. So many of us had to face the fact that even this vigil that we're experiencing today, we might have had to cancel it. But it wasn't even really a thought to us because we said, okay, we're going to go online and we're going to go virtual, which is what we've been doing. And together we rebuilt the Together Remember website. We built a virtual playbook to guide organizations all across the country and around the world for how they can transfer their programs from offline to online. We launched a youth action network in a matter of days with different youth leaders from different team boards at different Holocaust museums. We've also built that virtual memorial so you can see all of the content and contributions from young people around the world and also the names of the genocide victims. Over 180,000 names from 14 atrocities are streaming live as we speak 24/7, 365, because for me at least, in the Jewish tradition, it's so important that we have a final resting place for our loved ones, a place we can visit. And so many folks in the Holocaust and in other genocides, we don't know where they're buried. And so many were incinerated in ovens. And so at least online, we have a resting place for so many folks. And then finally, we created a name reading app so we can host name reading vigils, whether we're online or in our communities, anywhere for short and long periods of time. The students at Duke University, where I started this project, today as we speak, have a 24-hour vigil going on online. And all of these resources are available for you for free at togetherremember.org. The thing I'm most proud of, though, is that we have banded together with the Together Remember Coalition to offer a month of free virtual events to unite the fight against hate, not just in the United States, but across the world. And on April 30th, we are going to have a 24-hour global vigil online to commemorate the victims of all different genocides and atrocities throughout history and to transform remembrance into action. So definitely check out the website and sign up and join us for that experience. The LA Museum of the Holocaust will have at least one of those 24 hours and will be concluding the Global Vigil program. Now I want to bring us back to where we're at today and the challenges that we face. What you're looking at here is the ADL's heat map showing different cases of hatred, extremism, anti-Semitism, as well as terrorism. And I have to say, it's really terrible that I've shared this image multiple times over the last few years, and increasingly there are more and more dots on this map. But the first time I saw this image, I thought of a quote from Elie Wiesel, and he said, "Wherever men and women are persecuted because of their race, religion, or political views, that place must, at that moment, become the center of the universe." So let's look at this map one more time. Doesn't it feel like all of our communities need to be the center of the universe right now? How are we supposed to fight hate if it just seems to be in every corner of our communities? It can feel overwhelming. So that is why my hope is that the Together We Remember movement can help us fight fire with fire and turn that map into a map that looks more like this, right? And it doesn't mean that those dots, those incidents of hate are going to go away, but we are showing up together across lines of difference with our brothers and sisters to fight this fight. But instead of the kind of flame that can divide and destroy and burn down our communities, what if it's the kind of flame that can burn bright and unite us as one? So now as I wrap up my talk, I'd love to speak especially directly to my fellow peers in the millennial generation and in the generation that follows. At this point, I believe that the peaceful world that our parents and grandparents hoped we would inherit, that's probably beyond their reach, but it doesn't have to be beyond ours. We are ready for our Lador Vador moment. Now, this is the time to rise to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, David, for your powerful speech. Members of Los Angeles Museum of the Holocaust Teen Board have been working with David and his organization, Together We Remember, to observe April as Genocide Awareness Month, to remember the victims of the Holocaust and to turn that remembrance into action to combat hate and identity-based violence. A few members of our museum's teen board have shared their thoughts about why it's important to remember the Holocaust.
To me, remembering Shoah is a way to honor its victims and give them back the dignity that was so terribly stripped away from them due to intolerance and hate. Also, remembering the Shoah can create a world that is able to foster an accepting and tolerable society as we learn from the past and learn how to combat hate.
To me, remembrance means telling the stories of the Jewish people and speaking out about the dangers that any form of hate can bring. It is also making sure that all future generations are educated about the wrongdoings of the past so that they are never repeated. It is important to remember the Shoah because through it we can learn valuable lessons and create a more safe and loving world for all people, regardless of race, religion, or gender.
To me, Together We Remember and Genocide Awareness Month are not only about recounting facts from history, but are about finding ways to personally connect to the stories of Holocaust survivors and other victims of identity-based violence. This Yom HaShoah marks the 3-year anniversary of when I met Holocaust survivor Dorothy Greenstein, and she and other survivors have taught me lessons of hope, resilience, and tolerance that I carry with me not only during Genocide Awareness Month, but every day.
Thank you, members of our museum's team board. Thank you for your contributions and comments. Thank you so much. Please now welcome Los Angeles City Controller Ram Galperin and his husband, Rabbi Zach Shapiro from Temple Akiba, to lead us in Al Mela Rachamim and the Mourners Kaddish.
Thank you so much. Thank you to Beth and to all of the board and to all the participants, and most crucially to the survivors and to all of those who are carrying on the memory of those who perished and the memories of all of the experiences of the Holocaust. Today is the day that we commemorate Yom HaShoah, but it's also Yom HaShoah v'Hagvura, which in Hebrew means the day of remembrance, but also remembrance of the survivors and of the bravery. As controller of the city of Los Angeles, it's an honor to be here in this city that was a refuge for so many of those survivors, including my own father. And as the son and grandson of survivors, this is a particularly meaningful and important gathering. And even though we are not in one room or in one tent, we are very much together. I wish my father, who would have been 99 years old this week, were here. We used to come to Pan Pacific Park each year together. And then he passed away 3 years ago at the age of 96. He lived in the neighborhood. He escaped Romania. His parents actually survived within Romania and then made his way to Israel, where he met my mother, who had been born there. And so it is for us, the next generation and the next generation and the next generation, as David said so eloquently, to keep up the memories of the Shoah. And I remember my father would tell me a little bit about the experiences, but he didn't really share with me until his last years the full breadth of the experiences. And these are so many stories that the museum tells and retells, and that's absolutely crucial. And these lessons are more important than ever when we see the growth in anti-Semitism, along with other hatreds, ethnic, religious, racial, political conflicts. It's our job, lidor vador, from generation to generation, to carry on these memories. I come from a long line of rabbis. My great-great-grandfather was a rabbi, my great-grandfather, my grandfather, my father. Last person I ever thought I would marry was another rabbi, but go figure. And so it is really so meaningful to be here with my own husband and Rabbi Zach Shapiro. Before my father passed away, he also passed to me a lot of knowledge about Jewish liturgy and Jewish music and cantorial music, including teaching me the El Mare Rachamim. And we would like to recite that in memory of the 6 million. So those of you who are watching, if you're able to stand, please take a moment and do so as we recite the El Male Rachamim. And I'll say it in Hebrew, and then Zach will be sharing it in the English. El Male Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim, Amtzei Menucha, Nenucha Nechona, Al Kanfei HaShechina, Bemalot, Kedoshim, Utehorim Kezoar Harakia, Mazirim, Et Nishmot, Shel 6 מיליוני היהודים, חללי השואה באירופה, שנהרגו, שנשחטו, שנשרפו, ושנספו על קידוש השם, בידי המרצחים, הנאצים ועוזריהם משחר הרמים. לכם בעל הרחמים, אסתירם בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, בצרור החיים את נשמותיהם, אדוני ונחלתם, וינוחו בשלום על משכבם, ונאמר Amen.
O God, full of mercy, who dwells in the heights, provide a sure rest upon the divine presence's wings, within the range of the holy and pure, whose shining resemble the skies, all the souls of the 6 million Jews, victims of the European Holocaust, who were murdered, slaughtered, burnt, and exterminated for the sanctification of the name by the Nazi assassins and their helpers from so many people. Therefore, the Master of Mercy will protect them forever. From behind the hiding of the ever-present's wings, and will tie their souls with the bond of everlasting life. The everlasting is their heritage. The Garden of Eden shall be their resting space, and they shall rest peacefully upon their lying place. They will stand for their fate in the end of days, and let us say,
Amen. Please join us for the mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah, v'yalma tiberach chilutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'b'yomechon, u'b'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, b'gala u'b'zman kariv imru Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah mevorach leolam u'olmei olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal, Shmei dekudesha brichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran be'alma v'imru Amen. Yehi Shlomo Rabba min Shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'imru Amen.
May the one who causes peace to be known in the high heavens help us understand that whenever we try to seek understanding from one another, we help to create peace on earth as well. For all Israel and for all humanity, we say,
Amen.
Amen. Please welcome Holocaust survivor David Lenger, who will now lead us in the partisan song.
Go ahead, David.
My name is David Lenger, and I am a Holocaust survivor. I would like to preface this song by telling you, those people that don't understand Yiddish, because this is written in Yiddish and it's going to be sung in Yiddish. It is a song of utter despair, a song of aspiration for to be free, and a hope expressed that one day we will throw off the yoke of Nazism and our enemy will be shunned and we will be free again. So here's the song. Sog nicht keinmal, als der Geist im letzten Weg, Gott Himmel bloe verstellen grote, weil kommen wird noch unser ausgebänkte Schuh, es wird abbeugt und unser Trottner seinen Du, weil kommen wird noch unser ausgebänkte Schuh, es wird abbeugt und unser Trottner seinen Du, von grünen Palmenland bis in weiten Land von Schnee. Wir kommen nun mit unser Pein, mit unser Weh, und wie gefallen es ist, ein Sprotz von unser Blut. Sprotzen wird noch unser Gewirre, unser Mut, und wie gefallen es ist, ein Sprotz von unser Blut. Sprotzen wird noch unser Gewirre, unser Mut. Die Morgensinn wird begurten uns dem Heim, und der Nächten wird verschwinden mit dem Feind, und unversummen wird die Sonne in dem Kajor, wie ein Parol, so gern das Lied von Dor zu Dor, die sucht dich Kemel, als de Geist im letzten Weg. Gott Himmel bluen verstellen grote. Willkommen wird noch unser ausgebänkte Schuh. Es wird abheugt und unser Trott wir seinen du. Das Lied geschrieben ist mit Blut und nicht mit Blei. Das ist kein Lied von einer Vogel auf der Frei. Nur so dein Volk zwischen fallende gewähnt. Das Lied gesingen mit Naganes in die Hand. Nur so dein Volk zwischen fallende gewähnt. Das Lied gesingen mit Naganes in die Hand. Drum such nicht Kämel als der Geist im letzten Weg. Gott Himmel blue verstellen grueteig. Willkommen wird noch unser ausgebänkte Schuh. Es wird ein Beugt und unser Trott mir seinen du.
Thank you, David. Thank you from all the community. Before we conclude this program, I would now like to bring back Beth Kin to say a few words.
Thanks, Michelle. Thank you, David. I can't think of a better way to close our ceremony today. During these uncertain times, we get hope and inspiration from our survivors, as you can see from hearing Edith and David today. Thank you to all of our participants for making today's ceremony so special and so meaningful. And thank you to everyone who joined us from across the globe. We are stronger when we stay together as a community. So please join our museum in our pledge to make never again a reality. And please stay safe and healthy and have a good night. Thank you.